How's it going, guys? My name is Jimmy Champagne, and today's Halloween update is all about the inevitable sequel to Halloween 2018. But before we get into that, I wanted to tell you about my friend Blake's site, Loudmouth Threads. So you might have noticed this new Hereditary shirt I have, that's from him. And as far as I know, he does most or all of the art himself. And again, as far as I know, he runs everything himself. He watches all my videos, and I thought that was awesome. So I reached out to him, and he made a special coupon code for you guys. So if you go to his site and order anything, and use the code Jimmy Champagne, my name, no space in the middle, you'll get 10% off, which basically covers the shipping. So I think that's awesome. Blake's a really cool dude. He's a nice guy who watches the videos, so I think you guys should definitely go check out his site. It feels equally weird and sad to say that Halloween is winding down its theatrical run, but on its $10 million budget, it made around $250 million worldwide, so it's safe to say that Halloween will return in the future, and it'll probably involve Blumhouse in some way. The thing I want, though, is David Gordon Green and Danny McBride to come back, and hopefully Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. But we did get some conflicting reports on whether or not that'll happen. So I thought it'd be fun today if we collected all of the interviews that people involved with this movie have been doing over the past month and try and figure out who exactly is gonna come back for the sequel. I already talked about this in a previous video, but back on October 5th, Bloody Disgusting dropped an article that said they confirmed with sources that Jason Blum was already working on a sequel before the movie had even released, and that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride weren't going to be coming back to work on it. That article really bummed me out, to be totally honest with you guys, because I had already seen the movie at that time in Salem, and it had already premiered at Toronto International Film Festival, and it was getting rave reviews. So I didn't really see why they wouldn't want to bring back David Gordon Green and Danny McBride. We know there were reshoots on set, but I never really heard anything about them being difficult or anyone really having a bad time making this movie. And now that the movie has made $250 million, you'd think they'd want these guys to come back and work on a sequel because they obviously know what they're doing. And something that makes this report even weirder is the fact that Danny McBride did an interview with EW just 3 days before this one came out, and he said something pretty interesting. He was straight up asked about whether or not a sequel would happen, and he said, "We have some ideas, so now we're just sort of exploring them to see if they have enough legs to kind of warrant it." Now, to be fair, I have no clue when that interview actually happened, but if it happened anywhere close to October 5th, why would Danny McBride be talking about ideas for a sequel if Blumhouse had already started moving forward on one without him and David Gordon Green? It just seems a little fishy. But then we also got an interview just 5 days ago from Collider that basically confirms that David Gordon Green is also thinking about ideas for a sequel. Basically, the interviewer wanted to know if they kept Cameron alive so that he could come back in a sequel, and David Gordon Green said, yeah, there's some ideas for him later. The interviewer then asked if it was always the plan to kill Michael in a fire, and David Gordon Green said, did he perish, and questioned the interviewer. So I never thought Michael died in that fire, but we basically just got confirmation that he lived through it. And finally, the interviewer said maybe it would be cool for Laurie to come back and dig through the ashes and see if Michael actually died, and David Gordon Green basically said, yeah, that would be a really cool idea for a sequel. So obviously, he's thinking about a sequel. Again, the question I have to ask is, why would David Gordon Green be out there saying he has ideas for a sequel if he was already confirmed to not be working on it? It just seems a little weird. And the last piece of evidence I have for you guys is coming from Laurie Strode herself, Jamie Lee Curtis. So the weird thing about this is, leading up to the movie's release, it was being billed as the final confrontation between Laurie and Michael. But having seen the movie, we now know that Laurie does not die, so obviously it's not the final confrontation with Michael, so that's kind of weird that it was marketed that way. But anyways, a bunch of sites were asking her the right questions, and she basically confirmed that she would come back for a sequel under one condition, that David Gordon Green directed. If David Gordon Green called me up and said, let's do another Halloween, I would do another Halloween, because he did such a beautiful job creating this movie. And that interview took place on October 26th, so obviously Jamie Lee Curtis would come back for a sequel, and she really probably wouldn't say that if she didn't already know that Blumhouse was planning on bringing back David Gordon Green or Danny McBride. And if they're not, she's basically sending them a message saying, hey, I won't do this movie unless you bring these guys back. So I don't necessarily think Bloody Disgusting had bad info, but I think things have probably changed since then, judging by how much money this movie has made and what other people are saying. It should go without saying, but I really think it would be a huge mistake not to have these guys come back and make a sequel. They did a great job taking on the monumental task of making Michael Myers scary again and making Laurie Strode a dynamic and compelling character again. Jamie Lee Curtis straight up said she won't come back unless David Gordon Green is directing it, so I think that's reason enough to hire him to do a sequel. My other thing that I really want is obviously John Carpenter to do one more score, because he did such a great job with this one. With With all that being said though guys, in the case that Bloody Disgusting is right and David Gordon Green and Danny McBride aren't coming back, I'd love to hear some directors you think could do a really good job with the sequel down in the comments below. And also, if you're not subscribed already, I'd really appreciate it if you did. Make sure you hit the bell button as well next to the subscribe button, because that's the new subscribe button. You won't get video updates from me unless you click that button. It's really weird, but that's how YouTube works now, I guess. Anyways guys, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.